Get out of the car.
North Quay Shelter?
You know how to read.
Vanessa, what are you doing?
What I should have done months ago. Your access to the apartment has been revoked. Your cards are frozen. Anything left inside will be delivered after my attorney approves it.
You brought your donors here to watch this?
I brought witnesses.
My mother's fountain pen slipped through the open zipper and rolled beneath the shoes of Marion Holt, chair of the City Land Council. Marion picked up the pen and stared at its engraving. "Where did you get this?" "It belonged to my mother." "What was her name?" Vanessa stepped between us. "We're finished here." She turned toward the waiting cameras. "Find your way, Malcolm." I picked up my bag.
Before Friday night, you should find out what's holding this building up. Vanessa stopped. Is that a threat? No, it's a warning. Her car pulled away. Then the pavement beneath my boots gave a low, metallic shudder. I had heard that sound once before, inside my father's test facility, seconds before a floodgate failed. The sound lasted 3 seconds. Then the ground went still, and the people Vanessa had brought with her drifted back toward their cars. Marion Holt pressed my mother's pen into my palm without another word and followed them. I was still holding it when the shelter's steel door opened and a man stepped out. Gray at the temples, keys on an orange cord at his belt. He looked at the last car turning onto the waterfront road. He looked at the bag at my feet. He did not ask who I was. He did not ask what I had done to deserve it. "You need a bed?" Saying yes meant she had been right about where I belonged. Saying no meant sleeping under the pier and calling it pride.
"Yes?" "Samuel Pike. I run this place." He held the door. "Intake takes 10 minutes. After that, nobody in here cares about your afternoon." He gave me a narrow room upstairs with a metal locker and a window painted shut. I checked my phone. No service. Vanessa managed the family account. Bank card, declined. Credit card, declined. The apartment portal said my code had been retired. The foundation system said my account no longer existed. None of that happened in the last hour. Every one of those switches had to be flipped in advance, in an office, by somebody with a checklist. She had planned the sidewalk the way she planned a ribbon cutting. Downstairs, a television above the dining tables was running the evening news, and her foundation's name came up near the end of it. Open Harbor Initiative confirmed that its founder and her husband were separating. I had displayed concerning behavior. I had interfered with foundation property. Vanessa hoped I would receive the support I needed.
Nobody in that room looked up. Nobody there knew my face. But I understood what she'd built. Every word of it sounded like compassion, and every word of it meant that anything I said from then on would sound like an unwell man with a grudge. Samuel sat down across from me with 2 cups of coffee. "You want to know what you walked into, or you want to sleep?" "Tell me." "Building closes Friday. Transfer goes through at 11:59 p.m. to Harbor Crown Development. 41 adults. Everybody was promised relocation. Nobody has a confirmed address." "How many have jobs?" He looked at me a beat longer, because it wasn't the question most people asked. 19. Fish plant, 2 restaurants, the bus depot, all inside a mile. The relocation list puts people across the river, an hour and 40 minutes each way when the bus runs. The building shuddered again beneath us. Cups rattled. 2 men at the next table didn't glance up. "That," I said, How long? Since spring. Building's old. Everything here shakes.
Show me the basement. He should have said no. He looked at the pen in my hand and took the keys off his belt. The mechanical chamber under North Quay was bigger than the dining room. Brick walls, steel beams, faded flood level markers along the far wall, and a vibration that came up through my boots in a slow metallic pulse. I found the gauge on the north wall, a dial the size of a dinner plate, needle drifting up and settling and drifting up again. That needle should not have moved at all. A relief system at rest holds nothing. That needle meant something upstream was pushing and something downstream was not opening to let it through. 10 feet away, a heavy lever sat in a steel housing bolted to the brick, and somebody had painted over it. Gray, thick, the drips not yet dull. The coat ran unbroken across the housing seam and the lever's collar, and paint like that doesn't hide a lever. It records one. It shows you exactly where the handle stood on the day the brush went by. Manual bypass, held open. Malcolm! Nora Bell stood in the stairwell doorway in a foundation coat. Chief Operations Officer, 6 years, the woman who actually made Vanessa's calendar work. "You shouldn't be down here," she said. "Neither should you." She glanced back up the stairs. "The vote was moved forward. It was supposed to be next month." Her voice dropped. "Vanessa wants this building empty before anyone can inspect what's underneath it." I did not tell her who my father was. I made that decision in under a second. The way you make one, you've already made 10,000 times. I told myself evidence doesn't need a famous name behind it, that if I said the name would become the story, and the building would become a footnote. It was the same thing I had done for my entire marriage, holding the one thing that would have changed everything and calling it humility. In the morning, Samuel handed me a stack of maintenance binders with cracked spines. 20 years of paper. The city never asked for it. I found my own handwriting in the third binder. 4 years ago, when Open Harbor was 6 people in a rented conference room, Vanessa asked me to inspect North Quay for free. I spent 9 days down there and wrote a 40-page condition report, and we sat up until 2 in the morning while I explained what the building actually was. She listened. That's the part I can't scrub out of the record. That same month, she asked me not to attend the donor presentations because my work clothes made the organization look unfinished. Her consultants presented my findings under their letterhead. I told myself she was under pressure and let it happen, and kept letting it happen. And the authority I handed her, one quiet piece at a time, was the authority she was now using to have me removed from a building I had written the book on. Page 26 was gone. The staple marks were still there, torn where the sheet had been pulled straight out. Section 25 ended mid-sentence. I knew what that page said because I wrote it. North Quay does not sit on ordinary ground. Under the east side lies a secondary relief chamber, part of the original waterfront flood control network. When a storm surge fills the lower channels, the primary system takes most of the water, and that chamber takes the rest. It's the reason 4 blocks of the low waterfront stayed dry through 2 storms that should have flooded them. Demolish the building without restoring the chamber, and those blocks stop being lucky. The missing page proved the file had been altered. It proved nothing about who pulled it, and any lawyer alive would say so. I asked Samuel to use his office phone. I hadn't dialed the number in 9 years. He answered on the second ring and knew my voice before I said a word. Malcolm, I need original technical records, the Waterfront Relief Network, design and commissioning. You're calling from a shelter. You'd know that how? Because I read the news and because you'd never call me from a house. A pause. Are you hurt? I need the records. My father has a way of going quiet that isn't hesitation, it's arithmetic. Mercer Meridian surrendered operational control of that network to the city 11 years ago, he said. I can't compel an inspection. Anything I hand you, her attorneys will call a private document from an interested party. I can send lawyers, 6 of them, tonight. No. Then you're asking me for something I don't have. There's one thing, a stewardship covenant attached to that network. It survived the transfer. If the safety function of a covered property has been compromised, the covenant freezes redevelopment pending independent review. It isn't a lawsuit. It's older than that, and it's binding. Then file it. I can't. Only the legal successor of Mercer Meridian can invoke it. A beat. That's you. You've never accepted it. It's still sitting there. But invoking it makes your identity public record. Your name next to mine in every filing. It makes you legally accountable for the safety of the thing you're claiming to protect. If you're wrong, you own being wrong. There has to be another way to prove it. Maybe. You're the engineer. Then, without any heat in it. You want the truth to protect you while you keep your name hidden from it. I hung up and went back to the basement, where I could tell myself I was solving a technical problem. The objective was simple, and I believed in it. Find hard proof before Friday night. Do it without ever saying whose son I was. Samuel came down at noon with a rolled blueprint under his arm. You said the digital system reports the gate position. It does. Then what's this? He put a finger on a small square notation near the east wall. Independent mechanical counter. It's not on any drawing the city gave me, and there's no door there. There's a wall. We found the panel behind a supply rack under plywood that came away with a screwdriver. Behind it, a steel plate with an official mechanical seal, a lead disc crimped onto a wire and stamped with a city inspection number. I did not touch that seal, and it mattered more than anything else I did that week. A broken seal is a broken chain. The moment I cut that wire, every reading behind it belonged to me instead of the city. Behind an inspection window the size of a playing card sat an analog counter. 6 brass wheels, no wires, no power, no software. Every time somebody moves that gate by hand instead of by command, one wheel turns. It's the dumbest device in the building, and the only one nobody can edit from an office. The city's digital record for the previous 8 months showed a clean column of zeros, no manual overrides. The counter read 14. Is that bad? Samuel asked. It means one of these two is lying, and only one of them can. I photographed all of it on the shelter's old camera, the counter through the glass, the intact seal close enough to read the stamp, the gauge with the needle up, then a wide shot of the room so nobody could claim the pictures came from some other basement. Then I made Samuel stand in the frame with his hand on the plate. Why me? Because in 3 days, somebody is going to say I made all of this up alone in a room. That was the first thing I did that entire week that wasn't hiding. Marion Holt came at 4 for the scheduled closure inspection, with a clipboard and a city engineer who said nothing. I showed her the gauge, the painted lever, the counter behind the glass, and the printed record with its zeros. She looked at it a long time. I understand the discrepancy. I can't act on it. I can't delay a scheduled transfer on photographs taken by a man with no standing.
I need a certified diagnostic performed under chain of custody by somebody licensed with the city witnessing. Do you have a license, Mr. Avery? It expired. Then I have nothing. She said it without cruelty, which made it worse. Then she took my mother's pen out of her coat and set it on the bench between us. Now tell me about this. My mother's. Her name. Dr. Elaine Avery. Marion sat down on an overturned crate. I was 26 years old, and I carried her drawings, she said. She ran the review sessions for this network. The chamber under us is hers. She turned the pen so the engraving caught the light. Build for the weight no one sees. She said it in every review until we all said it back to her. She worked with Mercer Meridian. She did. Half that network is their design. I watched her almost ask the next question and decide it wasn't hers. Elaine's son is standing in her chamber telling me it's been switched off. I could have told her then. I had the whole sentence assembled in my mouth. The stairwell door opened. Vanessa came down in the pastel pink suit, an attorney behind her. 2 men from Harbor Crown's security contractor behind him. She did not raise her voice. She has never once had to. Chair Holt, Mr. Avery entered a restricted mechanical space without authorization. His professional license lapsed 6 years ago. He has no standing to inspect anything in this building. He also spent 9 days in this room 4 years ago and knows every panel in it. Whatever condition he's found down here, he had the access and the knowledge to create it. That's a serious accusation, Marion said. It's a serious situation. I'm asking for an order restricting him from this level until the transfer completes. My counsel has the paperwork. He did. It had been drawn up before she walked in the building. Vanessa, did you authorize a manual bypass of that gate? She looked at the painted lever. She looked at the counter behind the glass. She looked at me. I authorized progress. By 6 o'clock, the contractor had run a steel bar and padlock across the supply rack and posted a notice with my name on it. The only evidence in that building nobody could edit was behind a lock I couldn't legally touch. 2 days left. The next morning, somebody slid a diner receipt under the office door. On the back, in blue ink, 7:15, table 6. Nora was in the booth with her coat on and her coffee untouched. I'm not giving you documents, she said before I sat down. I'll tell you what I personally know, and that's the end of it. Tell me. In April, a contractor complained the relief system was making the floor vibrate in the donor tour area. Guests could feel it through their shoes. Vanessa approved a temporary cosmetic bypass, her words. Hold the gate open, kill the vibration, restore it after the tour. I was told hours. And after? Every monthly report since shows the gate fully operational. I signed 4 of them. I never walked down there. I signed what the system told me, because that's what I've done for 6 years.
Why tell me? Because my signature is on documents I didn't verify, and because I heard her call the people in that shelter obstacles. She said it evenly. I'm not a hero. I'd just rather not be the only one holding the bag. Then she asked the question I'd been avoiding for 6 years. How does a facilities supervisor know Mercer Meridian's commissioning standards by heart? I gave her part of it. My father was connected to Mercer Meridian. I grew up around test facilities and engineering reviews, trained in coastal infrastructure and flood control mechanics, and walked away after my mother died because he and I could not agree on whether a safety decision was a moral question or a line on a risk sheet. I used my mother's surname. I did not tell her the rest. I told myself I was protecting her. In that booth, I admitted something else. For 6 years, I had told Vanessa my father worked in infrastructure, watched her not ask, and privately counted that against her. I had been running a test, and I never once considered what it would do to her to learn she'd been sitting for an examination nobody told her about. There's a window, Nora said. Security swaps the door controllers Thursday morning. The access alert on the control room is down between 8 and 8:20. I can open that door for 6 minutes. She put her keys on the table. Not to steal anything. To let you run a test in front of me. Thursday at 8, Samuel stood at the corner of the corridor with the camera and a mop bucket, because a man with a mop is invisible in any building in America. The control room was small and warm. 2 screens, a keyboard, a console with 1 pressure loop, and legacy mechanical readouts nobody had looked at in years. I ran the lowest test the system offers. Not a live cycle, a low-pressure diagnostic that asks the gate to move a few degrees and report back. The equivalent of turning a key to see if the engine catches without starting the car. The pressure climbed and held. The mechanical readout, the physical one, did not move a hair. The screen printed, relief gate, normal, position confirmed. It's lying, Nora said. It's reporting what it was told to report. Then a line flashed at the bottom of the failure log for about 2 seconds. An override still active, and beside it, an authorization prefix, not a name. The executive block used only by Open Harbor's senior officers. Samuel got it on camera. I watched that little red light and felt something come loose in my chest that I mistook at the time for the end of it. We had a recording, a witness who would testify to the bypass approval, a false status caught live, an executive prefix, a sealed analog counter nobody disputed. In the corridor, Nora stopped me. If I sign a statement, my career in this city is finished. So I'm asking once, when you stand in front of that council, will you tell them everything you know? Yes, I said. I meant it the way a man means a promise he has already carved an exception into. By noon, Marion had scheduled an emergency safety review for Friday afternoon, 6 hours before the transfer. 4 hours before Vanessa's gala. The review was in a municipal conference room with a table too small for the people around it. Marion at one end, a city attorney beside her. Vanessa and her counsel across from me, Nora and Samuel on my side. I didn't use one technical term I couldn't explain in a sentence. Under that building, there's a chamber that takes the overflow when the storm channels fill. A gate lets the water in. The gate has to be able to open. Right now, it can't, because somebody put it in manual bypass and left it there. Then I laid out what I had. The mechanical counter behind the sealed panel has turned 14 times. It's a brass wheel. It can't be edited from a keyboard. The city's digital record for the same period says the gate was never overridden once. Both of those cannot be true. Yesterday, I ran a low-pressure diagnostic, and the gate did not move, and the screen said it did. And the failure log shows an override still active under an open harbor executive prefix. Marion pulled a pad toward her and began writing. The city attorney read over her shoulder and did not object. Samuel let out a breath. Nora said, out loud, that she would sign a statement. For about 90 seconds, I believed it was over. I believed being right had been enough, the way I had believed it my whole life. Vanessa's counsel opened a folder. Emails, 4 years old, mine, from the original inspection. Floor plans of the control level in my handwriting. A temporary staff credential issued in my name 2 years ago.
My lapsed license with the expiration circled.
Mr. Avery knows every access point in that building, her attorney said. He is the only person in this room with the technical ability to place that gate in bypass, and the only one with a documented personal grievance against my client. You think I did this? I said. I think a man who has spent 4 days building a case against his wife in secret is not a neutral observer, Vanessa said. Marion tapped her pen twice on the pad. That may all be true. It doesn't resolve the discrepancy. A counter says 14, and a record says 0. That alone justifies a temporary suspension pending an independent look. I'm inclined to sign it. Vanessa didn't argue. That should have warned me. She never argues with a decision she can move around instead. Before you sign that order, Chairhold, ask him how the evidence was obtained. And ask Nora what he still refuses to tell her. Every head at that table turned toward me. Marion set the pen down. How did you obtain the diagnostic? Nora answered before I could, and she said it clean. I opened the control room for him during a scheduled security gap. I had no authorization. Nobody asked me to lie about it, and I'm not going to. The city attorney asked to see the camera. Samuel handed it across the table, and it did not come back. Evidence obtained during unauthorized access in a room where the door log was down. Disputed. Impounded pending review. The counter was unreachable. Only a licensed inspector can break a city seal, and the only one available before Friday night worked for Harbor Crown's contractor. I could not certify my own diagnostic. My license had been expired for 6 years.
Chair Holt, Vanessa's attorney said, you are being asked to halt a $200 million development on the word of a man who had the knowledge, the access, and the motive to create the exact condition he's reporting, using evidence he gathered by putting a Foundation officer's career at risk. Marion sat with her hand flat on the pad a long moment. Then she pulled the sheet off, folded it once, and put it in her pocket, unsigned. I can't pause a transfer on compromised evidence. That is not a judgment about the truth, Mr. Avery. It's what I'm permitted to do. She stood. The vote proceeds tomorrow night. In the corridor, Vanessa suspended Nora on the spot, pending referral for unauthorized system access. Nora took it standing. Then she looked at me. Who is your father?
I have gone over that half-second more times than I can count. I could have said the name. The room was already lost. The only thing left to protect was myself. I hesitated. "Nora, you asked me to risk everything," she said, "while you kept deciding what truth I was allowed to know." She walked out and did not look back. Samuel got his call that evening. The foundation would not renew the shelter's management contract. Residents were told to begin removing personal property before the vote, and by 9 o'clock, 2 men in Harbor Crown vests were stacking donated bed frames in the loading bay. The news that night described me as the estranged husband of a housing reform advocate, a former maintenance worker, a man accused of tampering with a charitable project and using shelter residents as leverage against a successful wife. I sat on the edge of a cot and understood the last piece of it. There was no backup of that recording, not because a copy was impossible, because I had not made one. 4 days of work on one old camera in one pair of hands, mine, because handing it to a second person had never occurred to me. My whole method was a locked room with a single key, and Vanessa had needed 1 afternoon to take it. I went down the corridor to the trash bin with my mother's pen in my fist. Samuel caught my wrist. "Don't. That pen belonged to the life that ruined everything." "The pen didn't lie to your wife. You did." He pried my fingers open, put it back in my palm, and closed them again. "That doesn't make what she did right. Both things are just true." I stood in that hallway holding a fountain pen while people carried mattresses past me. 29 hours to the transfer. Everything I built in the dark came apart the instant it touched daylight. The evidence, gone. The access, gone. The witness, gone because I had spent her. I had spent 9 years believing that keeping my name to myself was the same thing as dignity. It was only ever a way to make sure nobody could fully judge me. And it had cost a woman her career and 41 people their beds. I was not going to prove Vanessa wrong in secret. There was no secret left to work in. I called my father at 6 the next morning from Samuel's office. "I'm not asking you to save me." "All right. I'm accepting the stewardship." The line was quiet long enough that I heard the harbor through the office window. "Then hear the cost first," Gideon said. "Your identity becomes public record the moment the acceptance is filed. Your name next to mine in every document from here forward. You take on legal responsibility for the covenant, which means the safety of that network becomes yours, not a lawyer's. You can't hand it back when the crisis is over and go be a facility supervisor. My board will challenge you, and every reporter in that city will start pulling your marriage apart on camera." "I understand." "If you're wrong about that gate, you own being wrong publicly." "I'm not wrong. I can have 4 executives and outside counsel on the ground by 2 o'clock. "No." I had to say it twice because he started to answer. "No. If Mercer Meridian walks into that hall, this stops being about a flood chamber and becomes about a rich family fighting over a woman. She survives that. She'd survive it easily. Then what do you want from me?" "Identity verification. The original covenant document. Both delivered directly to the city board secretary, not to me. And nothing from you in public before I act. Not a statement, not a call to a councilman, nothing. You want me to send the paper and stay out of the room? Yes. That's the first thing you've ever asked me for that I actually can't do well. A pause. It'll be there by noon. This time I did not go down to the basement, because the goal had changed. I was not going to prove Vanessa lied. Everything I could gather alone, she could take alone, and she had. What I needed was something she could not take or edit. A lawful test, in a public room, in front of witnesses she did not control, where the machine answered for itself in real time. I needed standing to demand it. Standing meant my name. Marion let me into the city archive at 10 and made clear what she was and was not doing. Public drawings, a table, 4 hours. I'm not investigating for you, Mr. Avery, and I'm not telling you I believe you. The originals were linen-backed and smelled like a library. I found the east section in the second drawer, and in the lower margin, in a small upright hand I'd know anywhere. If the digital panel fails, the east ballast chamber will answer mechanically. My mother did not trust screens. She had built a second way for the system to tell the truth, a physical indicator in the ballast chamber that moves when the gate moves, connected to nothing but linkage and water. No software, no authorization, no opinion. I traced the east ballast line across 3 sheets to see where it surfaced. It surfaced under Meridian Hall, under the restored terminal with the glass inspection floor and the chandeliers, where Vanessa's gala was being set up at that hour, and where the council would vote at 10:30 p.m. She had chosen, for the most important night of her career, to stand directly on top of the one thing in the city that could not be told what to say. A lawful diagnostic run from the public safety console in that building would send the command, print the digital answer on the display screens, and move, or fail to move, a steel indicator under the floor with 200 people standing over it. I had until 10:30 p.m. By 2 o'clock, Vanessa's security contractor had circulated my photograph to the gala entrance with instructions to deny me admission. Samuel did not need to be asked. Every public land vote in Greyhaven has a comment period open to any resident of the affected parcel. He spent the afternoon in the dining hall explaining that, honestly. It might accomplish nothing. There would be cameras. Nobody had to go. 19 went. The vote decided where they would sleep on Saturday, and they said so themselves at the microphone later, in their own words. Marion gave me one thing, standing in a stairwell at Meridian Hall with her coat still on. If a lawful test begins in my hearing, I will not permit anyone to shut off the public display until it finishes. That's the whole promise. I'm not on your side. I'm on the side of the machine being allowed to answer. The city agreed to appoint an independent engineer to observe, conditional entirely on my establishing legal standing before the vote opened. I called Nora twice. She didn't answer. I left one message. You were right. I asked you to risk the truth while I kept part of mine hidden. I'm not doing that anymore. Whatever happens tonight, you don't owe me anything else. At 7, the board secretary met me in an anteroom off the main hall with a folder. The identity verification, the birth documentation, the Mercer succession declaration, and the stewardship covenant with its original seal. Sign the acceptance, and it enters the public record within the hour, she said. There's no confidential version. I took my mother's pen out of my jacket and set it on the table. I did not sign. I told myself I was being strategic, that you don't spend your only card before the hand is dealt. That was half true. The other half was a photograph in my wallet from a courthouse ceremony 6 years ago. 2 people who had no guests and didn't need any. She told me once, in the first year, that she never wanted to be powerless again. I did not ask what had happened to her, because asking would have obligated me to say something back. Her fear was real. I believe that more now than I did then, and every choice she made out of it was still hers. She found me in the service corridor at 8, in the pale pink gown, and she spoke quietly enough that the catering staff 8 feet away heard nothing. I'll withdraw the accusations, all of them. There's an apartment on Bay Street in your name by Monday, a settlement my attorney will not argue about, and medical and counseling support paid for as long as you want it. She let that sit. Walk out before the vote, and nothing about tonight touches you. Will you stop the transfer and restore the relief gate? The city can't afford another delay. Will you tell Marion Holt about the bypass? She didn't answer. You didn't leave me at that shelter because I had nowhere to go, I said. You left me there because you needed people to watch you decide where I belonged. And you still came back asking to be seen. No. I came back so they could see the building. She opened her clutch and showed me a security order with my name typed on it, restricting me from the safety console area for the duration of the event. Then that's where we are, she said, and went out to greet her donors. Meridian Hall at 9 o'clock held every kind of power that city has. Donors, council members, journalists along the north wall, the Harbor Crown investors at the front tables, security at every door. Above the glass inspection floor, chandeliers. Below it, my mother's linkage. Vanessa had the stage, the microphone, the screens, the schedule, and the room. I came in through the main entrance in a plain navy suit and got about 9 feet before a security officer put a hand across my chest. The board secretary's voice came from the side of the dais, amplified. Chair Holt, the council has received a pending stewardship claim under the Waterfront Covenant.
The claimant is present and is entitled to address the body before the vote. Vanessa could have fought it. She looked at me across that room and she let it happen. And I understood why. She had spent 4 days building a man who lied, and she was about to let him prove it in front of every donor he had. She was not wrong. I stepped to the microphone. My wife did not know who my father was. That was not an accident. I hid his name from her. The room made a sound I felt in my sternum. I told myself I was protecting our marriage. The truth is, I was testing it. I wanted to know whether someone could love me without knowing what I might inherit. That was dishonest, and it went on for 6 years, and I take responsibility for it. Vanessa's voice, clear and unhurried, from the stage. Then tell them who your father is. The board secretary read from the verified declaration. Malcolm Avery is the sole legal child of Gideon Mercer, founder of Mercer Meridian Group. The hall went quiet in a way rooms almost never do. I can only tell you what I saw. Cameras turning. A donor at the second table setting down a glass without looking at it. Vanessa's fingers tightening on the microphone. Marion Holt closing her eyes for a moment. Samuel at the back looking at the pen in my hand.
You let me believe you had nothing, Vanessa said. I let you believe my name didn't matter. I was wrong to hide it. I found her across the floor. You decided I didn't matter. That was your choice. Then Marion stepped to the edge of the dais and said the sentence that kept me honest. Mr. Avery's identity does not prove that the flood system was manipulated. It proves who he is. Nothing more. No, I said. It doesn't.
That's why I'm asking for a test and not a verdict. I signed the stewardship acceptance on the corner of the dais with my mother's pen in front of the room, and I knew exactly what I was signing. Legal responsibility for the covenant, public scrutiny, oversight for the rest of my life, liability if the machine under that floor answered in my wife's favor. The claimant has standing, the secretary said. The covenant permits a request for a low-pressure safety diagnostic. Vanessa's attorney was on his feet before she was. The test could stress a building with 200 people in it. This is a scheduled municipal vote, not a laboratory. It's a personal grievance dressed up as a safety concern. 3 council members said out loud that they agreed. Vanessa lifted 2 fingers, and security closed toward the console alcove, and for perhaps 40 seconds, she had the room back entirely. Marion did not declare me right. The covenant is valid and the request is lawful, she said. A low-pressure diagnostic moves the gate a few degrees. It doesn't stress anything. It will be run at the public console, observed by the city's independent engineer, with the display visible to this hall. The council will wait. She looked at the security men until they stopped. Nobody touches that screen. Nora Bell came in through the north door in the coat she'd been suspended in. She had no documents. She had nothing that solved anything. I issued the temporary credential that let Mr. Avery into that control room, she said. That was a breach, and it was mine. I'll answer for it. She kept going. Open Harbor's override codes are individually assigned. During the period in question, exactly 2 people held senior override access. Vanessa and me. My code was disabled on the 11th, before the last 4 overrides were logged. This is a suspended employee under investigation, Vanessa said. She's been terminated as of this moment. She said it into a live microphone in front of the room, and Nora lost her career standing up and did not raise her voice. Then run the test. I ran it. 1 line from the public console, the smallest ask the system accepts, with the independent engineer at my shoulder and her hand on the log. The pressure loop climbed on the display. The room watched the big screen, because that's where people look. Relief gate, available. Position confirmed. I said, look at the floor. Under the glass, in the light, the mechanical indicator on the east ballast linkage sat exactly where it had been. It did not move a 1/4 inch. It did not twitch. The gate is physically unresponsive, the engineer said. The digital report is false. Vanessa crossed the floor to the console. The controller needs an executive reset, she said. It's a software fault. I'll clear it. She could have stepped back. The engineer was standing right there with her hand out, and any officer with counsel in the room would have surrendered the keyboard and let the technician own the result. Vanessa has never in her life let anyone else touch the last decision. She entered her personal authorization code. The reset command printed on the public display, and the line beneath it printed too, because the system logs what it is told,
and by whom. Manual Order Count 15. Authorized Source: Open Harbor Executive Account, V. Avery. The indicator under the glass did not move. Nobody confessed anything, nobody had to. She had reached for control one last time, and the machine wrote her name down. The independent engineer read her findings into the record. The gate had been placed in manual bypass. The digital system had falsely reported normal operation. The most recent override originated from Vanessa Avery's executive authorization. The property could not be certified safe for transfer. Marion suspended the vote. The covenant froze the demolition process. An independent investigation was ordered before midnight. Vanessa turned to the room and made her last argument. He built our entire marriage on a false name. What I hid wounded our marriage, I said. What you did endangered people who trusted your foundation. Both of those are true in the same room. I did not ask her to forgive me. I did not offer her anything. I did not use $1 of my father's money to make her smaller than she had just made herself. The foundation board placed her on administrative leave before the hall emptied. The land transfer failed. North Quay stayed open. The 19 people from the shelter did not cheer. They had come to say where they needed to live, and one by one, in the comment period that followed, that is exactly what they said. As security walked her toward the side door, Vanessa looked at the pen in my hand. My mother built a system that couldn't be silenced by one person, I said. I should have learned from her sooner. North Quay stayed open through the repairs, the relief chamber restored under independent supervision. I didn't buy it. I used the stewardship to create a resident council instead. Vanessa and I met once to finish the separation. She asked if I had ever meant to tell her. I kept waiting for the truth to feel safe, I said. Waiting was another way of choosing for you. My father came alone. We agreed to talk weekly. At the council's first meeting, I set my mother's pen on the table. They signed the charter with it, and it stayed there. Strength was never carrying everything alone. So tell me in the comments, if someone measured your worth only by what they could see, would you reveal everything, or let their choices reveal them first? And if this story reminded you that dignity should never depend on status, share it with someone who needs that reminder.